Well, it's a good morning from the studios of Radio FM 88 here in Australia. And as a consequence, we're going live through Facebook, YouTube on Radio FM 88 Australia and on Radio FM 88 Aussie on X. Afterwards, you can watch the show on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple and Amazon. Without further ado, I'm going to hand it straight across to my co-host and colleague, Elise, from the area of Cape Canaveral in Florida. And it's a good morning to you. It's a good evening to you.
Good morning, good evening, wherever you're listening from. Thank you for being here. I have the honor of having Samuel Chong with us today. I'm very excited to talk to him after reading 90% of the book. I tried to go as fast as I could. And so I'm very excited, Samuel, to have you here. We are going to talk about I'm going to call it the Golden Planet, and it was a abduction to the Golden Planet, but it's called something else. And I'll let you say the name because it's an interesting name. So Samuel, welcome. Thank you for being here, and tell us all about you.
Yes, I'm a lawyer in California, and I've been a certified court interpreter as a Chinese translator in Los Angeles for over 20 years. I was born in Beijing, China, but I have the fascination of the unknown to learn more about the paranormal activities, as well as near-death experiences and reincarnation, which led me into researching the stories of ET contactees, which led me to this book, also known as the Thiaoouba Prophecy.
Okay, Thiaoouba. I'm going to write it down. Okay, excellent. So tell us, how did you get connected to this amazing book?
You know, I always wondered about who built the Great Pyramid of Egypt and how it was built, what really happens in the Bermuda Triangle, in which reportedly many ships and planes vanish or gone missing when they're close to that area. There are also stories about people who hike in the national parks in the US who just gone vanish, as reported by David Paulides. I also hear stories about reincarnation, about people who have near-death experiences. And I wanted to learn more about those kind of events and knowledge. I don't think that anyone on Earth would be able to really give us the right answer. So I was looking for extraterrestrial information or contacts. So I did research on books written by ET contactees, hoping that the ETs can give us the right answers. And I found this book, Abduction to the Next Planet, or the Golden Planet.
Oh, okay. All right. Excellent. And so how did you get connected to the author to kind of now go on shows and talk about the book instead of the author, being the one, talking about the book? So what's the connection?
As I was reading the book, in the very beginning, I thought it's just another story, maybe a science fiction. But when I read the chapter on who was Christ, it really shocked me because everything within the book can be verified, especially about the tomb in Japan, the tomb of Jesus in Japan. So I wanted to find out more because the author in the postscript says that there are more incredible things that he learned from the ETs, but could not write in the book. And I wanted to know what else he knew, but couldn't write in the book. So I tracked him down. He was living in Vietnam at that time. I visited him and tried to find out additional information, but he refused to give me the insights. But then he asked me to get the book published in China. Later, I learned that if I do that, he would be willing to tell me that one thing he was not allowed to write in the book. So that after I got a book published in China and Taiwan, which became a bestseller in both countries, he invited me to visit there again to meet him in person. And he told me that one thing that really shocked me. That's actually my motivation to publicize the book, to promote the book, even though I have no interest, monetary interest in promoting the book.
Wow. And are you able to tell us what that secret is or not yet?
Well, I would encourage people to read the book first and then ask me that question so I can reveal some hints or maybe give some clues to that information. I can give you like one hint because you read 90% of the book already. Is analogical or similar to what happened to Noah in the past. Remember that Enoch was taken by the ETs or Enoch went away with God. And then a few decades later, Noah was told to build an ark. So if you think about it, Michel Desmarquet, the author, was taken by the ETs to their planet. He was gone for 9 days. And then
like
you can imagine, you can imagine what's going to happen a few decades later. But the future depends on us, our actions. We can really make the future as great as possible, but also catastrophes may also happen if we don't follow the right path.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, this is my second time reading the book. I read your book after I saw you at Journey to Truth podcast. And I read the book back then, but that was all back. So I had forgotten really most of it. And so I had to read it again. And like I said, I was about 90% done. But I want you to tell us, about the book. Because it has a beautiful story and so tell us what happens to him, like how does it, like what happens in the book, so it might interest people to really read it, because people should read this book. It has a beautiful message behind it.
It's not just about his story of being taken by the ETs to their planet for 9 days. It actually gives a lot of practical solutions to the problems or issues that people may encounter in their day-to-day lives. For example, it tells people how to find the right answers, whether someone has financial issues, someone has health-related issues, or someone has any relationship-related issues. So it gives the practical solutions to people who are struggling or who just want to find the answers to the unknown, the paranormal. It tells the history of mankind on Earth. It tells who really built the Great Pyramid, how it was built, and for what purposes. It reveals the issues related to the different political structures on Earth, whether it's a dictatorship or authoritarian regime, or if it's a two-party system. It reveals the real dangers on Earth, which is number 1, money, number 2, politicians, number 3, journalists and drugs, and number 4, religions. And it also tells the people that China may be leading the Americans or Australians ahead in learning about advanced ET knowledge, because the Americans are focusing on the ETs whose vehicles crashed in Roswell. If you think about that, if their spacecraft crashed, that indicates that their technologies are not so perfect compared to the ETs whose spacecraft never crashed or will never crash on Earth. The spacecrafts of the Thiaoubans of the Golden Planet, in which the author had the privilege of visiting there for 9 days and receiving advanced information, knowledge, and technologies. And the book has many details that would lead people into additional research and revelation and enlightenment.
Yes, absolutely. And it's funny because you kind of tell people something that I wrote down, which, as you said, what are the biggest issues on the planet? And it's definitely not nuclear warheads or anything like that, right? It's what you mentioned, those 4 things. And so it's really, truly a beautiful book. But because we have still 1 hour to go into interview, I was hoping maybe you could just cover like what happens to him, like what's the story, so people so not only is it a beautiful message, but also it's an interesting story as well, and of how he describes the ETs that are around him, the aura description about the auras and the halos and all that stuff. So if you can just tell us a little bit about just the whole story of him and how he gets abducted and what happens to him.
So what happened was that back in June 1987, he was sleeping in Cairns, Queensland, Australia. He was a landscaper and he slept very tight normally. But that one night, he woke up suddenly in the middle of the night. And then he didn't know why, but he wrote a note to his wife saying that he'll be gone for 10 days and there's absolutely no need to worry about him. And he walks outside of his house. He was lifted up to the middle of the air where he saw a beautiful, tall being, which is an ET, a female form, with really, really kind of attractive, having an attractive look, and who told him that they were going to have a trip together to their planet. And then he had no choice but to follow her instructions of going inside of spacecraft, in which he was disinfected using yellow light and blue light, which I later found out indeed to have antibacterial, antiviral effects, as proven by Harvard Medical School in a research study. But that paper was published many years after the author Michel was abducted or taken by the ETs, or having disinfected by the ETs. And on their way, they stopped at a different planet that was in the aftermath of a Holocaust, a nuclear Holocaust. And he was told what happened to the planet because they had political issues in which nuclear war broke out and kind of decimated the entire population on that planet. And he saw a lot of people being deformed from the effects of radiation. And then the ETs collected the soil samples to test the radiation levels. And he saw the people on that planet pray to them and in order to thank them and seeing them as gods or goddesses. And he was having this kind of very unique feeling that the people on that planet saw the ETs as gods in their eyes. And then they went on to their journey and to the planet Thiaoouba, which is a golden planet. He calls that planet the golden planet because he saw a golden mist surrounding the planet as they approached or towards the landing on that planet. The people there are extremely beautiful and compassionate and loving people. He didn't feel any he didn't feel any threat or any unease. He felt love and compassion. And in fact, when one of the Thiaoubans, the ETs, put their hand on his shoulder, he felt kind of fluid vibrational feeling that caused him to like that kind of feeling. And he later discovered this one thing, that the people on that planet all look like in their 30s. He learned that they don't age at all. They can live forever because they can generate and regenerate their body tissues and cells. So they're always happy, just like receiving good news every second. They don't have any money on the planet because no one took advantage of each other, because they don't need any money. There's no government, and they don't need to have any fences or security cameras because people just don't do harm to others. They communicate through telepathy, and they look like Caucasians. They have blonde hair, they have blue eyes, but they are hermaphrodites, meaning that they have both male and female sexual organs. And they speak all the languages you can think of because they can kind of get information and knowledge from each other, or download information and knowledge from each other. They can levitate. They can perform all the miracles as performed by Christ, as documented in the Bible. So that means they can heal all the diseases you can think of. In fact, they can create an adult human being in 24 hours. They tell Michel, the author, that human beings not just have the physical body, they also have the astral body. What happens is that when everything was created, everything was actually created by cosmic X or cosmic forces. And then, for example, when one cosmic egg is projected onto Earth, it actually split into 3 parts that became like helix. And then they split into additional parts to become like the 7 chakras that a lot of people talk about. And then the chakras form the auras that some people can see, like Barbara Brennan, a former NASA scientist, or Judith Collins, an aura reader in Sydney, Australia. Some people have the gift to see the colors of auras. And then from the auras, physical bodies are formed. So when you want to really heal a person from disease, the best way is to remedy or heal the energy fields, the human energy fields, or the auras. That way you can actually improve the physical body or the physical health of a person. If you just take the conventional drugs or Western medicine, then you treat the symptoms, not the root causes. In fact, my parents are Chinese doctors, and there are stories of the ancient Chinese doctors who could actually see the blockages of the energies in the human body. And this is why they use acupuncture to put the needles into the energy blockages to really kind of make the energy flow again. But later on, as the days go by, the Chinese doctors lost the ability to see the auras or the energy fields. So this is why they developed this kind of meridian or acupressure points, the system to put needles into certain acupressure points based on the symptoms. And similarly, the Chinese herbal medicines also tend to remedy the vibrational frequencies or the human energy fields, because each herb has its own vibrational frequency. When you boil the herbs into water to make the tea, you're actually passing down the vibrational frequencies of the medicinal herbs into water. In that sense, the tea becomes a carrier of the healing vibrational frequencies of different vibrational or medicinal herbs. And so the Chinese herbal teas are more effective than the tablets or capsules. If you want to take Chinese medicine, my parents can prove that because they developed something for diabetes. And then according to them, when they drink the herbal tea from the medicines, the same kind of medicines, patients normally have better results or effects from drinking the tea than taking the tablets or capsules, because the water becomes a carrier of the vibrational energies or frequencies. And some people can see auras, and some people can also see halos, like the ancient or some of the painters in the past. So this is why when you see the paintings of saints or Buddhas in the Eastern culture, you'll frequently see the halos drawn by the painters. The people who devoted their life for the interests of others normally have the halos because they're more altruistic, focusing on the spiritual side of their lives. So this is why it's better to have spiritual enlightenment or development than just focusing on the materialistic of one's life. And in fact, I can prove that because I study reincarnation and near-death experiences. People who have near-death experiences, when they come back, they always tell that they should have cared more about their loved ones, their parents, their spouse, or their children. No one ever talked about the missed opportunity of investing in a share or in a stock or
Yes.
in a property. No one talked about that because we don't take away material wealth when we pass, when we die. I mean, if you think about it, Napoleon conquered a vast territory of land when he was alive, but when he died, he couldn't take away any of the material wealth that he accumulated. Similarly, we should not focus on the material wealth when we are alive. We don't have to envy about the super wealthy like Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos or Warren Buffett. In fact, we should focus on the inner spiritual development, follow the teachings of Christ or other spiritual masters like the Buddha. In fact, I strongly believe that we should follow the teachings of Christ. But on the other hand, we should not follow specific religion because religions tend to serve their own purpose. And the book talks about that at length.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And the other thing, before you move on to all the other stuff that's in the book, when he's talking about auras, he does talk about how when you dress, when you wear the colors that complement how you feel. So it really matters when you're wearing clothing, what color you pick, because it can create a really good day for you or a bad day for you, because it's not at odds. If the color is making you feel good, then wonderful. But if you pick colors that go against what you're feeling, then it creates for more not a balanced day, right? So I wanted to bring that up because I thought it was important for people to know that it does matter what you wear. It's important to really use your intuition and really ask your higher self, like, what should I wear? Obviously, if you can see your aura, even better, you know what color to wear. But so go ahead. I just wanted to bring that up so people knew about that.
Yes, indeed. The colors are different forms of vibrational frequencies, and colors affect people's mood or the energy fields. And the book actually talks about the effects of colors on people's auras, and I get validation from aura readers such as Judith Collins in Sydney, Australia, and also other people who are able to see the colors of auras. And in fact, in the 1920s, chromotherapy or color therapy was extremely popular in the US until the FDA cracked down on that kind of therapy after the antibiotics were discovered or commercialized, because color therapy was so effective that they can heal and treat all the different diseases you can think of at that time. And in fact, there are different books on chromotherapy or color therapy. There's one book titled Let There Be Light and by Mr. Dinsha. And that book specifically focuses on different diseases and different colors that can heal the different issues or symptoms. And so I think that when you incorporate the different colors of clothes that you wear into your day-to-day life, and also the different colors in your rooms, you can actually make yourself a little bit more healthy than before. In fact, there are specific peer-reviewed studies on the effects of colors. For example, there's a study on the effects of green color, the color green, for people who have migraines or headaches. And it's so effective. The green lights, LED lights, are so effective that after the experiment, the participant wanted to get the green LED lights for free because they wanted to bring the lights home so they can treat their migraine, the issues of their migraines. And there are also other studies on the effects of pink color, which calms people and also reduces muscle strength by about 30%. And similarly, the color red energizes people. By the way, there's a story I want to share to you, is that pink, the color pink, reduces muscle strength by 30%. And there is a coach, football coach, in the University of in one of the universities in the U.S. I won't name it because it may embarrass a lot. So that coach knew about this, so he painted the locker rooms of the visiting teams into pink color, and he never lost the home game. So you can think knowledge is power. If you know this, you can take advantage of that.
That's a great story.
Yes.
I love that. I love that. That is great. That is awesome. In the book, he also talks about how the ETs are a lot taller, right? Aren't they like super tall? I don't know centimeters, and he describes them in centimeters, but I'm assuming that they're much taller, right?
They're about 9 or 10 foot tall, about 2 or 3 meters tall. Yes.
Yeah. So I found that so interesting how it's very detailed, the book about the ETs, how they give him, how it's super bright, and they have to give him these goggles or these helmets so that he doesn't see with such brightness, because we don't even see the colors, all the colors here. We're not able to see all the colors that exist. And over there, you're able to see mostly all of them, I would think. And so they give him this helmet so that he can, so it doesn't damage his eyes, right?
That's right. The planet Thiaoouba is very, very kind of colorful. So the colors are so strong, the lights are so strong that he had to wear facial masks like sunglasses to filter out the strong colors and lights. And in fact, there are a few different things that are different from Earth. One is the strong colors, and the other is gravity. The planet Thiaoouba has lighter, lighter gravity, so he had to be a little bit careful when he moved around, just not to fall down or something. Everyone on the planet communicated through telepathy, and they didn't eat a lot of solid food. They ate powders and like honey meal, like a liquid, a honey liquid. And he actually tasted manna because the Thiaoubans were heavily involved in the history of mankind on Earth. And a lot of the events were actually recorded and documented in the ancient scriptures in the Old and New Testaments in the Bible.
Yes. And so he was talking about how they were considered gods, and then his guide is actually one of the Moai in Easter Island. So one of it was, it's one of the Moai that was carved in Easter Island. I thought that was so interesting.
Yes, and it tells people, the readers, how the statues or moas on Easter Island were built using anti-gravitational technologies and ultrasonic weaponry systems to cut the huge stones in a very precise manner. And they explained to Michel, the author, that if you can use a kind of vibrational frequency to neutralize gravity, then you can actually make a huge stone, gigantic stone, become weightless without weight. And this is the same way that they built the Great Pyramid of Egypt. And yes, they're amazing people. I mean, if you read the book, you're going to read a lot of details that can enlighten you in different ways.
Absolutely. And also the description of the 7 I can't call them gods, but the 7 beings.
Yeah, the 7 masters.
So the masters, that was so interesting with their halos and golden auras. I mean, it's like they had golden around them, like a golden mist around them.
Yes, and in fact, when Michel saw them, and he describes it that they had a hard time keeping in their physical form So they frequently appear or disappear. Kind of, they have to try hard to keep in their physical form because they can join and rejoin the great ether or the great spirit where everything is created from. And it actually, everything is created from the great ether or God through a Big Bang event. And the book explains how that occurred and why that occurred and how humans are different from animals in different ways.
Yes, beautiful. Tell us about the part about Jesus. What else
Yes.
can you tell us? What does the book talk about Jesus? What does it say?
That's actually the chapter that really made me believe that everything written in the book is for real, is not made up or through hallucinations. The book is it's a very dense book, has a lot of details. One of which is the description of the tomb of Jesus in Shingo Village, Japan. After reading that description, I looked it up, and yes, there is a tomb of Jesus in Japan. And remember, the book was written in 1989, and the event took place in 1987, many years before internet went to Australia. And remember, Michel was a landscaper. He did not know how to use technology. In fact, he did not know how to use a computer when I visited him. Everything was done by his Vietnamese niece, Lily. And he had to dictate everything, and Lily would write everything down, send emails to others. So he didn't know how to use a computer, and there was no way for him to know that there was a tomb of Jesus in Japan, a country that he never visited. So what happened was that, according to this book, Jesus, the one that was born out of Virgin Mary, indeed, Jesus was born from Virgin Mary, was someone who was highly spiritual, who had a profound conversation with teachers of the temple, who went to India and traveled through China and died in Japan. So that's the Jesus as written in the Bible before the age of 15, before he began preaching. But the figure who preached about spirituality and love is actually a different entity who was able to perform miracles just to convince people that he was someone whose teachings were to be believed. And in fact, Christ taught about spirituality, about love, about reincarnation. And in fact, the reason that he died on the cross and then resurrect 3 days after was just to show people that there's life after death and there's reincarnation. But the one who was born out of Virgin Mary was the one who could not perform miracles. This is why in the Bible there's no record of Jesus performing any miracles before he began preaching. And this is the one who died in Japan, who lived a long life and had 3 daughters. And in fact, there's a PhD called Dr. Tom Chako, who visited Shingo Village, Japan, and found out that the people in Shingo Village sing a song that sounded like the ancient Hebrew language. And there's a description of the life of Jesus according to the perceptions of the local people in Japan. And so I find that to be very interesting because the book also details how King Herod killed 2,606 babies. and what the Star of Bethlehem was, and how that came to be about. That was actually one of the vehicles of the ETs who were guiding the people at that time.
Okay, so you're saying there were 2 different beings that that were confused, not confused, but that really what the Bible is showing is the life of two different people.
Yes, the life
Okay.
of two different people. And this is why when you read the New Testament of the Bible, you're going to wonder like why when Christ, when he after he began preaching, he saw his mother in a group of people. He did not call his mother mother. He called his mother woman. So that is one of the clues that I find out. I found out to be something that people should look into.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point. Wow. So that's very interesting. And so the main reason that he's abducted is because, and correct me if I'm wrong, is because they want him to write word for word everything that is shown to him so that he can bring the message to people that our world is in going the wrong way.
Yes.
And so that we need to change our ways from materialism, as you mentioned, to love, to loving those that that are not even the people that we don't agree with. So I'm going to read that because I wrote it down. So the solution depends on love, not money. It requires that people rise above hate, resentment, jealousy, and envy, and that each person, whether he be street sweeper or community leader, puts his neighbor before himself, offering his hand whenever it's needed. So it's about even loving those that we don't love, right? That are doing things that we don't agree with or that we're judging. And so it's about really just helping each other, no matter whether we think they're good people or bad people, because at the end of the day, each one of us has that God spark in them.
Exactly. Absolutely. Yes. As Christ taught us, it is very easy to love someone who praises you, but it's very difficult to love your enemy. So, what's really important is to love your enemies, the people who don't like you.
Yep.
Or who you don't like, because it's more challenging. And the more challenging the issue is, the more you can learn in your life. And this is actually something that I learned through my personal journeys as well. For example, just to give you an analogy, if you are always learning 1 + 1 = 2, a basic mathematical problem, then you are not going to learn much. But if you're going to take on the challenge to learn like a calculus problem, then you're going to learn a lot. So this is something that I want to encourage people, is when you have challenges in life, just think of it as a challenging problem, an opportunity for you to learn more, a precious opportunity for you to take on the challenge and to overcome it and to learn the spiritual lessons behind it. And what we take away are the spiritual experiences and lessons that we learn in each of our lives, not the material assets that we accumulate. So it's better to love the people that you don't like than the people. I mean, we should love everyone. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So I want you to talk about something that's coming to mind too that I think should be mentioned, is the idea of how Earth is the lower level planet. So there are these planets of sorrows, or what was it called? Something of sorrows.
Sorrows, planet of sorrows.
Planet of sorrows. Okay. So those are the lower level first grade planets. Like you are at kindergarten, you are at the start. And so Earth is one of these planets. So I want you to explain to people like the levels of the planets, because the Thiaoouba planet, or people from Thiaoouba planet, are like at the highest level before the creator, I guess. So can you explain those levels of the planets of?
Yes, just bear with me on the audience. There are a total of 9 different categories of planets or different levels of planets in the universe. And we are actually living on category 1 planet, just like an elementary school, learning the basics. And the Thiaoubans or the Jehovans are living on category 9 planet. This is why they have all these psychic abilities to levitate, to materialize objects, and to never die, and join and rejoin the great ether, the creator. And there are other levels in between. And I can give you a story as documented in the Old Testaments of the Bible. As you know, in the Old Testament of the Bible, people used to live 800 or 900 years or so. But gradually, the longevity of the people reduced to nowadays about 100 years or 110 or so. What happened was that the yellows, the Chinese, the yellows, and the blacks, the people, the aboriginals in Australia and the people in Africa, they originally came from category 1 planet. So were the Caucasians and the ancestors of the Polynesians, but not the Hebrews. The Hebrews came here accidentally because their spacecraft crashed in what's now today's southern Russia. And because of the weather, it was very cold. They migrated south to the Middle East, where Israel is nowadays. And they encountered the locals who wanted to rape their women. So they had to defend themselves. So they had conflicts with the locals from the very, very beginning. They were highly spiritual because they came from a different category of planet. So this is why they lived longer lives before. And this is why, if you look at today, even though the Jewish people only account for about 0.2% of world population, but 22% all the Nobel Prize winners are Jewish people. So they are kind of smart and intelligent, and they have the tradition of following the scriptures, and they didn't marry outside of their blood. Some of them marry out nowadays, but traditionally the Orthodox Jews, they don't marry out. So you can see that the book explains everything that you see as something that cannot be explained. And I think if you want to learn more about the history of different kinds of people, including the Caucasians, the Polynesians, and you should read the book word for word and to really learn like why certain things happen that way.
Yeah, the different races. I always question, why do we have, it's impossible that white people came from black people, or that black people or Asians came from, like if Adam and Eve were, let's say, white, how do we have blacks? How do we have Chinese? So I always knew it had to be something else other than, what we see. But something else that I wanted you to talk about is the story of Lemuria. So I want you to tell us, what does the book say about Lemuria and at Atlantis as well? So that story kind of interweaves in there.
So before I talk about Lemuria, I want to bring out the story of Adam and Eve that you mentioned.
Okay.
The Bible actually has a lot of stories, or I will say for people to remember, allegories or maybe connotations of different concepts, one of which is the concept of free will. So when you are told not to eat an apple from a specific tree, but you still do, you're exercising your free will. And then you have to face the consequences. And that's actually the concept of free will as told in the story of Adam and Eve. The story of Adam and Eve may not necessarily a true story, but it may be something that just to tell a specific concept of free will. Because when God created every one of us, it actually inserted a tiny portion of itself to each one of us. So we are part of the Creator, and the Creator is part of us. And by that, we also have the free will, in which the Bible stories kind of tell that through the different stories. And actually, on the continent of Lemuria, there was a kind of a fruit on a specific tree that when you eat it, your mental agility is 3 times as more powerful than before. So when you eat that fruit, you're smarter. You can solve the problems that you wouldn't normally be able to solve. So that may be a story that's later on grafted into the stories of the Old Testament of the Bible. and I can tell the story of Lemuria. What happened was that Lemuria was a continent that existed in the Pacific Ocean about 300,000 years ago. And about 250,000 years ago, there was a group of people from the planet Remo X3 that were trying to migrate to a different planet because of the overpopulation issue. So they explored the different planets and found Earth, and then decided to migrate their people to the continent of Lemuria. They encountered the local Chinese people who were living in the northwestern corner of Lemuria. Being highly spiritual, they didn't want to fight against the Chinese. And by that, I mean, the Chinese people are by nature very, very suspicious. I'm Chinese, so I know. So they would fight any foreign newcomers without question. I know that. So that's what happened. So this is why they retreated back to the far side of the moon and built ET bases so that they can use the bases as transfer stations or bases to migrate their people step by step. And then the Chinese kind of diminished by nature or by natural causes. They were able to migrate more and more their people into the continent of Lemuria. They brought also a lot of their technologies, like the ones used to build the statues on Easter Island, and the ones to build the Great Pyramid of Egypt. And on the continent, they established a very successful and flourishing civilization in which money did not exist, similar to Thiaoouba. And what happened was that everyone just took whatever they needed from the marketplace. No one took advantage of each other. They loved flowers, similar to the Polynesians of Hawaii islands, and they performed very intriguing music, as described in the book. When someone dies, or when the king of Lemuria dies, they did not mourn, they celebrated, because they knew about reincarnation. They knew that the king of Lemuria would elevate or live again, reincarnate on a higher category of planet. So they celebrated because they knew that the king of Lemuria accomplished so much that his spirit would elevate in the next reincarnation.
Okay. And then, so then what happened with Lemuria? How did it disappear?
What happened was that they had a very successful civilization, but they didn't really, they were not able to know when an earthquake struck. What happened was that Lemuria, that continent, was actually on um, geologically on gaseous belts. So when an earthquake occurred, the natural gas from the gaseous belts came out, causing a lot of volcanic activities and turmoils, and the entire continent sunk into the ocean almost overnight, about 14,500 years ago. Um, only the remaining islands, such as the Hawaiian Islands, Easter Islands, and the Polynesian Islands, were able to kind of exist nowadays. And similarly, a few hundred years later, the continent of Atlantis also sunk into the ocean as well. So that's what happened in the past, unfortunately.
Yeah, and so in the book, he really goes into detail how it's happening. Like they have him there, and he's watching, and it's like in the book, it's very detailed how it all happens. So, if it's that's something that's interesting to people, then definitely the book will be very interesting because it also covers that, and it also covers what happens with Atlantis as well. Um, Now, is there anything else you can think of about the book that we haven't covered that you think people should know about?
Yes, reincarnation, the purpose of life, and also time machine. Um, the Michel was actually taken by the ETs to see his past lives, and he saw briefly what he was in different past lives. Once he was a German mining worker who accidentally killed his wife and children. His wife, not children, and also once he was a Japanese goldsmith, once he was a beggar on street, once he was a queen on a different planet, ruling about a third of the entire planet. And what the ETs explained to him was that the different reincarnations that he had, or everyone else has, is similar to the different positions on a wheel. What goes up has to come down. That means that everyone has to experience the different roles and different lives in order to learn the different spiritual lessons. We are using our physical body as a tool to learn the spiritual lessons. Similarly, we are just like using our physical body as a tool to make a sculpture. We give up the physical body when we die, but we keep the spiritual lessons that we learn. So this is about reincarnation. So there's no use to really envy the super wealthy. I mean, the Chinese people, they're becoming more materialistic. They want to learn how to become the next Jeff Bezos or the next Bill Gates or Warren Buffett. But actually, a lot of the major important points in each one's lives are actually predetermined. But how to get to the different points depends on our free will. It's just like taking exam. The questions on the exam are pre-made, but how to respond to the questions depends on our own free will. We can ace the exam, we can have a perfect score on the exam, or we can fail the exam. It really depends on how we see or treat the exam or our own lives. I want to ace it, so I want to do the best. But some people just want to take or retake the exam, so it's the free will of the people. About the time machine, well, the book explains kind kind of in trying to encourage people to, or American scientists develop a time machine, because when a planet is born, everything is recorded or documented in a psychosphere, so that rotates at 7 times the speed of light. So when you match the vibrational frequency of the psychosphere, you can actually access what some people would call the Akashic record, to access what happened in the past. And the book talks at length about how to do that, and how they did that, how they witnessed what happened when Lemuria sunk into the ocean almost overnight. So when people have challenges in their lives, the best way is to look inside for answers. For the kingdom of God is within you, because we are connected to the source, the creator, through our higher self. You can meditate, you can pray, you can just have a good night of sleep. That way you can connect to your higher self. And if the answers that you're looking for are good for spiritual development, they will be given to you. So meditate, pray, or sleep well. That's the best way to get answers when you're in a challenge.
Absolutely. Okay, beautiful. Excellent. And the last question I wanted to ask you was about your visit with the author. What else did he tell you that's not in the book that you can divulge? That was just in conversation, not the secret that we're not supposed to know, but the other stuff that he told you.
There are 12 families that run everything behind the scenes, that control everything that people see in the world today. And I try to get the names of the families, and Michel says the Roman Catholic Church is one of them. And also the other thing is that there are 3 chambers beneath the Sphinx in Egypt. When we are ready spiritually, we can open the 3 chambers and everything will be known. It's very similar to what Edgar Casey said about the Hall of Records. Yes. And also about the grace, in which the American government has been working with. The grace indeed put implants into about 150 people or so by the year 1995, just to monitor us. But there's no harm to the people who have the implants, because the grays are also people or ETs from category 1 planet. They are a dying species. They have been losing their immune system. They're trying to monitor to see how we respond to the same situation, because we have been losing our immune system since 1948, since we deployed or experimented with the atomic bomb.
Wow. Okay. Very interesting. I know that the like there's less people having kids and so more men aren't able to have children. Like there's like the sperm counts aren't good enough or whatever. Like so definitely, we are being bombarded with different technologies to affect how we procreate and all of that. So, but I did find it interesting, now that you mentioned that we are being monitored constantly by different ET races all the time. I mean, I know that the Thiaoubans are monitoring us, and and you know what comes to mind too, when they said that the higher self will interfere if you get into an accident of some kind and you're going to die, they will interfere if you're not supposed to die at that time. And I thought that was really interesting.
Yes. And also the higher self will allow you to come back to life when it is for the interest of others, such as your family members that who need your care. And when you are in that kind of near-death experience, when you tell your higher self you want to come back to take care of your wife or your husband or your children, sometimes they will allow you to come back. And that's when they will be alive again after being pronounced dead clinically. But a lot of people don't want to come back after they have such experiences because it's a very blissful experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, well, is there anything else that you wanted to tell us before we go?
I would say just I would encourage people to read the book because the book provides a lot of knowledge, because knowledge is power. If you have the knowledge, you know how to respond, respond to the life challenges or other challenges. And I would strongly encourage people to read the book. I studied financial analysis, and reading this book has been my best investment in my entire life. And you can gain knowledge that's going to bring you a lot of wealth, spiritual wealth.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Samuel, I'm very honored and impressed that you've taken it upon yourself to really represent Michael or Michel on this journey. Knowing that he's not here anymore, and so that's truly a humanitarian right there, because you're taking your time, and effort to get the word out. So thank you so much for being, an angel among us, and bringing forth, so this doesn't die, right? So the book doesn't die with him. And I'm very grateful for you for doing that. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for watching. We love you. Have a great week.